And we're live, and I think they can hear us.
You sure?
Oh, I see audio levels, so I hope so.
All right, hello guys, and welcome back. We are re-engaged, so we are starting yet another show. Basically, today we're going to address: is Vegas dying? Is Vegas doomed? There's a lot of negative news coming out of Vegas. And we have put together kind of a series of questions that Dennis is going to ask me. We're going to do this sort of interview style. We have been getting a lot of calls. A lot of media has reached out to us. A lot of local people have reached out to us. Even, professionals and people inside the industry have been calling and asking David, what does David think? And we're gonna provide some context. We're gonna provide some feedback and some answers. Now, the big stuff we are going to address today is number one, the news about the Golden Gate. So the Golden Gate is ditching table games and they're going to ETGs, or electronic table games. So they're replacing table games and dealers with the machine. So that's the first thing we're address. The other one we're going to address is all the negative numbers that you hear: tourism decline, the planes aren't coming, people aren't coming, all the prices, everything else that's going on. It's been this non-stop negativity about Vegas, and of course it's very clickbaity. A lot of people are getting a lot of views, and of course we're hoping we get some views too, but we're going to address it, add some context by people who live here and people whose business, so the dealer school, whose business really counts on tourists coming to Vegas, playing live table games, for example, and really feeding into the narrative that is Casino Quest and of course our dealer school. All right, so I'm going to turn this over to Dennis. And,
which, believe it or not, there's a camera on me today.
There's a camera. Look at that. That's what Dennis looks like. Hello, Dennis.
Hello.
Welcome back, buddy.
Okay, so we do actually have a couple things here. So we're going to just get straight into it. So the first thing is the Golden Gate.
Yes.
So the Golden Gate, if you haven't heard, has been moving to ETGs. Now, for people who may not know, can you explain what an ETG is?
So an ETG just stands for electronic table game. So essentially, there's two types of ETGs. There is a regular, I would say, more digital version, and then there's a hybrid version that actually integrates a dealer. So an electronic table game, no dealer, it literally just sort of automates the whole process. There's no chips, there's no dealer, it's just a digital screen blown up, one that you can gamble on, and you feed it money. Sometimes you play on your own terminal. There's a craps version where you actually can roll the dice or interact with other people. There's roulette and blackjack versions that is a sort of a collective thing. There's a bubble version that you could play by yourself. There's also a bubble version that you play with other people. So 5 or 6 people around, everybody has their own screen, and there you go. So you just feed it money. You don't interact with a person. You can kind of take your time and do what you need to do. There's also a hybrid ETG. This is kind of the next, I would say, the evolution of the electronic table game a little bit, so we're going to answer some questions about how the ETGs work, and I will tell you there's a justification for having a dealer. So you're saying, well, if it's ETG, why is there a dealer? Isn't the whole point to save money and get rid of the dealer? Well, yes, but the hybrid games have a dealer to kind of give you this sense that there's a level of authenticity, there's a level of trust, that you have a real person. It's not necessarily a computer with an RNG. There might actually even be real cards presented, but again, there's no chips, and all of the accounting for payouts and things like this are done by the computer. So you literally would feed your money in as a ticket in, ticket out system type of thing. You load up credits, and you just interact with the screen in front of you while the dealer facilitates some other part of the game, whether it's actually dealing cards or moving the dice around the table. Some of you have played the roll to win, that type of thing. But that's it.
Okay, so
Good.
we have a couple more questions here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the question is about the industry. So now that the Golden Gate's doing this, do you think this signals something for the industry as a whole?
So here's the really big, most accurate answer I can tell you. And I have had so many table game directors. I've had conversations with GMs of casinos. I mean, you name it. And let me tell you, there is a lot of context that's missing. So people automatically connect this idea that if Golden Gate is getting rid of dealers, that this somehow is part of a trend. And many of you have seen stories where ETGs, or electronic table games, have been inserted on a casino floor And the supposition is, or the connection is, that somehow that has eliminated tables and dealer jobs. Well, first let's look at the Golden Gate scenario. So Golden Gate is a casino owned by Derek Stevens, who owns Circa, Golden Gate, the D. Okay, so with that property very specifically, the Golden Gate's kind of in the middle. And what happens a lot of times when casinos take out table games and put in electronic table games, or take out real table games with dealers and put in ETGs, it moves the premium player. Those of you who are actually table game players, or what we consider premium players, right? It moves out the premium. You're not going to go there and play ETGs, right? You're still looking for table games. So you would migrate essentially somewhere else. So the appealing part of the ETG equation is the retail consumer, the consumer who is playing at lower limits, inserting less money. It's a whole different type of person that interacts with ETG in general. Now, there are people that cross over on both sides, right? But for the most part, it changes that customer component, okay? Now, with the Golden Gate, there's not a lot of rooms at that hotel. There's about 120 rooms. They're all very small. So it's not a casino that attracted a lot of premium players to begin with, outside of it being a legacy player. So if you're someone who's been coming to Vegas for 30, 35 years, you fell in love with the Golden Gate a long time ago, maybe you're still going, or maybe you stayed somewhere else and made your way down to the Golden Gate. But for the most part, the Golden Gate has sort of existed as it's a grinder casino. It's kind of sort of this legacy destination. It sort of fits into its own mode. It's not even like the Four Queens has like 800. I mean, it has a ton of rooms that can feed its floor, right? And they've recently gone through and renovated those rooms. The Golden Nugget, for example, Circa, right? Whole different dynamic when it comes to the casino and how people go to the casino that interact with that floor space. So that's number one. So I don't think on the cusp of it, it's taking too much away. It's not going to change that makeup of that customer that's already going to the gate in the first place. Now, the other thing is Derek Stevens has this ability because he's a casino owner. He's one of the few actual owners that can kind of do what he wants to do, right? Other companies have or other casinos are run by corporations. The process is a little slower, requires a lot more bean counting. Derek Stevens can go in and say, you know what, I already have all these table games over here. I got all these table games over here, so I'm not worried about losing this sort of premium customer. I can push them off into my existing properties, which is kind of unique for him, right? So he can sort of take this risk and create this new model, I think. And I believe that, every business, has this need to evolve. And I believe in this space, maybe, just maybe, he has an idea that might be useful. He has a vision and a way that he can make this work that hasn't necessarily worked for other properties, okay? And I'm gonna talk about how ETGs work and how they kind of balance the floor and the role that they serve. But in this specific instance, I believe that Derek Stevens, he has a vision. So I recently did an article, or I did a news thing where I didn't exactly call him a visionary. I will say this, he opened Circa in the middle of COVID. And I mean, it took a lot of chutzpah, some big balls to do that, I would say, right? And it's become, for all I know, a very successful property. So I feel like he's motivated by the right things. And I love the idea that he is an owner that's willing to kind of push the needle a little bit, right? And explore sort of, new opportunities and new things. I would love to see this ETG experience be something very unique, although I don't know what that is, because I've seen all the ETGs that are what I think I've seen, most of them in the hybrid games and this type of thing. So I'm not sure what's left, but maybe, just maybe, there is something left. There's some other way to present the ETG or the electronic table game equation.
Well, that's a good point, Len. I think we should circle back a little bit to the hybrid games. Now, the hybrid games being with the dealer, but still a digital game. Do you think that's the right way to go?
No. What's funny is, so in order to really kind of discuss this, I really want to move on to, so the only way to add the context and help you guys kind of understand is who is the ETG player, electronic table game player. So there's a big difference in the casino world between the retail player and the premium player, okay? So a retail player is someone like, every day you kind of go to Starbucks, you pick up a coffee, or what is it that you do every day, right? What what way do you interact? Maybe you stop at a Walgreens, or you're buying bread, or you're buying milk. You're doing something that's sort of very basic and generic, and that's a type of player that interacts with an ETG. These are a person that buys an electronic table game is usually investing less money. They're playing at a low limit. There's less peer pressure. There's not the same dynamic that exists on a live table game, right? What's interesting is they're also not like a regular slot player, right, in that sense. So if you're going to play craps on an ETG, you play it very differently than you would, let's say, a high-limit slot player. There are very few high-limit ETG players, other than those people creating content for YouTube and showing you that. But most people, the whole purpose of going to an ETG is, guess what? You can play at a lower limit. You can play slower. You can grind out these very specific strategies that maybe dealers on a live game would be kind of irritated at, right? So there's a justification, there's a reason for it, but the way people interact with these machines, specifically ETGs, is very different. So a lot of times people look at them, well, it's another type of slot machine. Well, it's really not. It's really not another type of slot machine. It's not like a $5 machine or a $1 machine, or the way that people interact with, let's say, a high limit slot machine, even though these ETGs very often have higher limits. They, as a machine as well, they only do 20 to 25% of what a live table game will do. Now, if we talk about the customer, right? So the ETG customer, what a casino will call a retail customer, is far removed from a premium customer. By that I mean, listen, if you're buying in on a craps table for $500, $1,000, $1,500 at this much higher level than anyone would on an ETG normally by default, okay? You're also that person who's going to get a steak at the steakhouse. You're going to frequent, you might be booking, a better hotel. You might be going to, a better venue. You're spending money in all these other categories also at a higher level, because the mentality needed to interact with a ETG is different. Not to say there's a market for it. I'm not trying to discount anyone that loves the ETGs. Me and Dennis love playing bubble craps. When we play bubble craps? When we have like $30, $50, maybe $100, and we don't want to deal with the live table. Maybe we see that the live table is at a higher premium, $15, $25, and we're not comfortable playing at those limits. In Colorado, we had a lot of fun playing, bubble craps because the tables were full, and so we moved to this ETG game, and it served its purpose. And that's where casinos try to get a balance. Now, I say all this because it leads into this idea of the hybrid game. So we recently went out to Buffalo Bills state line, or Prim. And they made the decision a long time ago, I'm not exactly sure when, to take out all the tables and replace them with these hybrid games. There's also a local casino that recently tested them, and they put the hybrid games on one side of the casino and then the live table games on the other side of the casino. And you can see the difference. I mean, first of all, the tables look different because of the digital components and the screens. They just don't feel they don't have the same atmosphere. They don't have the same sort of aesthetic that you would, a regular table game. But right away, you're confronted with, obviously, all the digital components, the ticket in, ticket out. It just feels different. The other part of it is because there's no actual checks, like it eliminates some of the normal dynamics that happen when you interact with a dealer, right? So, obviously the game is faster, it's more accurate, and all these other things, which is fantastic, but it takes away a lot of the sort of atmospheric, all of the kinetic things that go on when you're on a table game. And what was crazy is, I won't mention, it was a local casino recently who put them in and pulled them out. So I went in there 1 week, and you can see the live tables, the old school legacy tables with dealers, busy. The other pit, like literally 0 people. In fact, there was one woman arguing about the dollar that she was feeding into her. They had one of the craps things there, and there was a dealer, so it's a hybrid game. And of course, she's arguing about this whole dollar. So you could tell her price point was much lower than what you would have to buy in on a live table game. So Buffalo Bills, I'm going to use an example because I don't think Buffalo Bills has anyone to reach out to us, to be honest with you. But they're closing. They're closing, and I think. I'm not going to talk to their management, the decisions they had to make, and I've seen all the articles about how people have slowly just stopped going there, and stopped interacting with Prim. But I believe some of it in the slow decline has been, trying to nickel and dime that property. The bean counters got a hold of it and just literally whacked it over time. I don't have any proof of that. It's going to be my opinion, but it used to be a very vibrant place, a way to kind of get disconnect, from Vegas. I would go there. I would do staycations at Buffalo Bills or Prima Donna all the time, and even people coming from California. I mean, you have a shit ton of people literally trafficking from California. And I do believe when pushing that premium player away, eliminating those table games, eliminating that sort of ambiance and that atmosphere took away from the experience you would have at Buffalo Bills. I mean, let's be honest. Now, I don't know how big a role that played, but it definitely played a role. In almost every case where someone has tried to do, and again, I'm going based on, I don't want to be sued. I'm going based on, either what I've seen, what I've heard, what I know, right? Where casinos have done this experiment where they've taken out the live and they've moved in ETGs, it just doesn't go well. It just doesn't account for the realities of what table games bring, and that's the missing equation. From all of this and from all of these news articles. I talked to 3 different GMs of properties over this last week, and 4 or 5 different table game directors, and I asked them very specifically, if you could take out your tables and put in ETGs, would you do it? Like if you had the choice, it was literally just about the money and the dealers, and they said no. And in every case, they want to preserve live tables. You just can't get to the kind of money that live tables bring in. Now, excuse me. The other caveat to that is, guess what? You got to have good dealers. You got to have sort of a balance. You have to have sort of a range of options. There's the working capital parts that you have to manage, right? That you have to put together. So there's a lot of things that come in and make that part successful. And when you take your foot off the accelerator a little bit, and other parts of this equation fall away, you start looking at other potential solutions. But the one solution I will tell you to a successful live table game pit is not ETGs. The very way that they work and the kind of person that interacts with ETG is a very different animal. And it's just a fact. It is literally just a fact. Now, does it work as a kind of a remedy on the floor to allow for people like literally me and Dennis we're confronted with a $25 game versus a $5 bubble craft machine? Guess what? We're going to gravitate to the bubble craft machine. So having that option there for us is great. But also, no, I'm only buying it for $100 at a time. If I was on a table game and it met my minimum, maybe that would have been $500 or $1,000, right? And most everybody that interacts with table games know that this is true. The other thing that is sort of removed from this equation as far as, am I getting ahead of you?
You're literally getting so ahead of it.
Oh,
but
my bad.
It's okay.
It's okay. Do you want me
to? So we'll go back a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the questions that are here is about the player experience.
Yeah.
You kind of touched upon it a little bit, but what is the biggest difference for a regular person from an ETG and a live table game?
I mean, so the buttons don't smile. Right, the buttons don't give you a sense of belonging. There's not that social element. When you're on an ETG machine, it's just you and the button. You know what I mean? And just moving stuff around. A table game is a social, experience. It is a you can feel it, you can taste it, you can smell it, you can move the checks, you interact with the money. People are yelling. There's this peer experience there. And that's the other part of this very sort of visceral, experience. When casinos promote themselves, when they have a commercial that promotes themselves, almost every one of them includes an exciting craps table, right? Anytime you see a commercial about a casino, guess what? It's people cheering and going on about, or someone rolling the dice. I mean, it's literally the thing. It's that human quality that people look for. And here is when you're on a hot roll on a craps table, or everyone starts getting hot and the dealer's busting on a blackjack table, guess what people tend to do? Bet more money, you see? There's no incentive. There's no part of that. That experience just doesn't translate to an ETG, right? It's a very formulaic, very linear type of experience. A table, a live table, those are memories. I can't remember. The only reason I remember the bubble craps is because we had a lot of success with these hard ways that we were parlaying, so it became a thing.
And it was our first time playing those machines.
It really was my first time ever. I wasn't a big fan of them until I started playing. Then I'm like, oh my god, I love this. But because David's kind of cheap. You see what I mean? I don't want to buy in for $500,000 if I could avoid it. I would love paying $100 and just let it go as an entertainment. But when you get on a table and it gets hot, you start throwing hard ways, you start pressing, you start doing things you can't do, right?
Yeah.
You have this very social experience.
Well, the other thing to add is, when we've played ETGs, we do it to get away from people. And table games is a very different experience where we want to be with people. We want to be in that environment. We want to have this whole other thing.
Does anybody know what this is? Bucky's Cup. That's right. We love Bucky's, dude.
But I do also want to add a little bit of a point that you kind of mentioned in your career, where it's like people have gone out of their way to find you, right? That's not something that you're ever going to have on an ETG.
No, that's very true. I used to piss off the dealers that were on my crew, to be honest with you. So people would load up, they would come, and I hated to be on a dead game. I love to be challenged by players. I loved meeting new people. I loved interacting with new people. I like to hear people's stories. And so, a lot of dealers, when you've been working in this business for a long time, you know what they like to do? They like to sit on a dead game. Ever walk up to a crap table or a blackjack table and the person has their arms folded and they're looking up into space, they're not making eye contact with you, even though you're trying to come up, maybe buy in and have that engagement. And that is a takeaway, by the way, right? So you're obviously, that's someone you're probably less inclined to deal with. But meanwhile, you didn't get, if you came to work and David was on your crew, more than likely, we weren't going to be dead that day. And in fact, I would be calling people over. I one time had this stick person that got so upset. He was like, he says, listen, I was out partying late last night. David, could you just tune it down a little bit? You don't have to be so outgoing. And I'm like, dude, next time don't party so late. I don't know what to tell you. And of course, I literally wave people over. I would literally try to get, I was my own shill. I want to work. I want my 8 hours to go by quickly.
Yeah, you want to engage. And that's kind of one of the points that are people making in the chat is like how hybrid games, you can't make mistakes.
Yeah.
But that's not completely true, by the way. We've heard some stories of people messing that up.
Well, so interestingly, there was a woman recently who was interviewed. And I don't know whether they took her stuff out of context. She's supposedly well, anyway, she's a bean counter. She works for some kind of consulting company, and they interviewed her about, how they're taking away, replacing ETGs with live tables. And her commentary was just that, listen, casinos are looking for more hands per hour, accuracy, and all this other stuff. But that's not the whole picture. That's not necessarily true. If it's understandable, dealers make mistakes, and it might be slower than what a machine can do. But the truth is people interact with the machine slower, right? You don't have someone pressing you to figure out what the hell you want to do. You don't have a dealer who comes to you and now you got to react, right? If you're on your own blackjack game and you're on your own, bubble craps, we've taken forever. Until we push the button, we got all the time in the world. We can go get a drink, go to the bathroom. I mean, that machine runs on our time. So as far as the speed part goes, I'm not sure if that's true. As far as the accuracy, of course, we have heard, some issues, but can you imagine if you have a player in 10 grand as opposed to 100 grand, you could afford a few mistakes, you see? So and the type of player, you know what I mean? There's just all these other things that play a role in the table game environment. There is growth in table games, by the way. There is consistent overtime growth in table games on every level here in Las Vegas. So to say that somehow ETGs is creeping on, that was true for a minute. As casinos were sort of testing and flexing and leaning into some of these sort of nonsense narratives. But as far as Vegas is concerned, now I'm not talking about other markets. Other markets are all in on ETGs. Because if you have the only casino in town, it's 4 hours to the next property, whatever the hell it is, you can do what the hell you want. Like, people have no choice. But here in Vegas, you have choice. People come here for, Vegas is a destination. They come here for the experience. They come here for the memories. And you're less likely to get memories on an ETG than you are playing with David on a craps game.
So which actually leads into a good question we have here, so which is the market trends. So are we seeing more casinos across Las Vegas and even beyond move into this direction of like the Golden Gate, or is the Golden Gate an outlier? So
without a doubt, the Golden Gate is an outlier. Here's what I would say. ETGs are getting very, very good. And they're, I love interblocks, bubble craps. The roll to win game has also found a home in some casinos, especially where human capital is the issue. In terms of finding qualified craps dealer is not easy. So training a craps dealer takes time. It takes 5 to 8 weeks to become a break-in craps dealer. To become a decent craps dealer that makes less mistakes, can interact quickly and things like this, takes a couple of years, right? So there's this whole learning curve that sometimes casinos just can't wait. And so here in Vegas, there are not enough crap dealers. I will tell you, that's why I'm wearing this shirt. right? Because we still have a school. School's busy. It's getting busier, and we have this constant stream of people that are learning craps because there is still a huge demand for crap dealers. Blackjack dealers and baccarat dealers kind of like a dime a dozen because that's sort of the lower entry. But if you learn craps, David's got a job for you, right? And so many times casinos will move to this hybrid, especially the hybrid games, the roll to win games, because they literally can't train. And that's the only reason. They can't train enough dealers to man the table. They can't get a 4-man crew on that game. So that's been the issue. But I believe that as long as you can stay ahead of the working capital or the human capital parts of it, right? There is growth in table games, and ETGs serves sort of this other balancing act that all casinos want to dump you upside down. They want all your money, right? Ideally. So when you come to the casino, they want to give you opportunity to spend no matter what it is you want to do, right? Whether it's slots or keno or table games or bingo or whatever the hell it is, you see? So this is just one more piece of that puzzle, and it definitely serves a purpose, right? Because of low barrier entry. There is something to be said too for it being kind of a training tool. But here's the other thing that we haven't found that it's very good at converting people to the live thing. It's better as an alternative to people who know the game than sit down in a bubble craps to spend some time and spend less money. If you're already someone who knows how to play craps, but if you're someone who just goes and starts at the ETG, we haven't seen a whole lot of conversion from the ETG to the live game because the live game still presents issues of the intimidation and rolling the dice and buying in, all the etiquette parts.
Not only that, but it doesn't teach you how to communicate. Like especially on a dice game, you have to be able to say, "Hey, this is what I want."
That's right.
Quick little side note.
Yes.
Vegas Day Tripper says, "Hello, Daddy David."
Mr. Day Tripper, dude, legend. hello. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I saw earlier there was some story of someone who was compromised in one of these hybrid games. It was in West Memphis. Lost the hybrid game lost $100,000.
Yeah.
Over a course.
So by the way, that's a good point. I will say this. So that hybrid craps game got compromised a lot, and I'm not allowed to really speak to how people took advantage of that. Of course, some of that's been fixed now, right? Because they have the dice had to be moved in the middle. It takes a picture, and then it's not so much up to the dealer. But definitely people took advantage of the dealer and their lack of experience because people were, these casinos were just throwing anybody, on the table just to move the dice and call out, a number. So people were abusing, let's just say, that dynamic or their lack of information. In fact, so much so that on our Discord channel, I had this husband and wife reaching out to us, not us specifically, but inside the channel talking about how every time their rent was due, they would go down and hit up this one table in New York that they found, and that way they were able to, it was the easiest win. And there were quite a few tables that were turned off. Those Aruzi tables, or the roll-to-win tables, were literally turned off until they fixed this, until they had a software fix. Also, the sliding, you'll notice they put in the new ribs, dude. Your craps table now is ribbed for your pleasure, dude, or not for your pleasure, okay?
And by the way, when he says Aruzi, he means the roll-to-win game.
The roll-to-win game, yeah. They got bought over, so that I think that the licensing is changing. But there were people who took advantage of the acrylic tops, and there were some setters that came out and whacked these tables. So those tables are very suspect because again, these dealers that are there aren't necessarily certified dealers. They're just anybody who can interact, right?
Yeah. Okay, so let's kind of go back to these questions here. So historically speaking, has there ever been a time where people have come in, a casino specifically, has put in these hybrid games, maybe these ETG games, and then reverted back to live games?
Okay, so yes, lots. So there's a lot of examples. There's a mid-strip casino that took out 30 tables and replaced them with ETGs, entire floor. It was a terrible, terrible mistake. It just literally... If you're a center strip property, you need to capture that premium player and keep him on your property as much as possible. So this idea that somehow there was going to be this conversion or this extra suitability, because they experienced the same thing. They felt like they had spread too many games. They made this executive decision. A bean counter came out and thought about it and sort of came to this other conclusion. But anyway, so that's changed. There's also there's a casino in Australia. There's one in Canada. I mean, there's lots of casinos. There's a couple local places who have put in these hybrid games or ETGs, and they were taken from the floor. You know what's interesting is as sort of this really small tangent is, remember the skill-based games? Everybody was so excited. I don't know how many years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago, G2E was just literally everybody was discussing these the skill-based games, and they made their way onto casino floors. And quite honestly, like, we couldn't figure them out. We actually went to one of these. They're out of business now, which that's a whole nother story. But we went to this big manufacturer here in town. We were invited there, me and Alex, and they wanted us to kind of play this game, promote it. We couldn't figure out how the hell to use it. So we had someone come out and show it to us, and you're like, you're kidding me. So it was this, it's twitchy in the old sense,
Yeah.
where you had to, only people like with Dennis's skills, like with the joystick, would ever capture this bonus money. And then the rest of it was just a slot machine. But those very quickly, casinos invested a ton of money in these skill-based games with ETGs. There was one casino in town on the south side that spent millions of dollars, built this ETG stadium and this whole skill-based thing. And their big idea was to include like pool tables and ping pong, make this whole very interactive thing that they thought would appeal to Gen Zs. But it was silly. Gen Zs knew, first of all, it was just a digital game, right? So it lacked the dealer. It lacked the whole reason you come to Vegas. You want to play a skill-based game, guess what you can do? You go on Steam, you download something, and you play that co-op, or you know what I mean? There's so many other ways to interact. That's not how you interact with a casino. Anyway, so it didn't translate, and just sat there dead. It was a complete waste of money.
And the other thing, too, is there's skill-based games. I say that in quotations because remember the claw machine at G2E? The ball dropped. It didn't come into the little thing, and you still won.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so the ball dropped, and I still won $3,000. It was fantastic.
It was kooky. It was kooky at best.
By the way, there's a lot of people who don't trust ETGs. They don't find that, even though they're supposed to work as RNGs, like they're supposed to be legitimate, have some kind of whatever the algorithm, whatever they use is supposed to be true RNG. People don't trust them, right? So if you're someone who is playing an interblock, I've heard from a lot of people that'll play the interblock machines or don't play the interblock because they feel like it's rigged. I will tell you, by the way, we met the engineer of the interblock, the bubble craps, the individual ones, and he showed us how the piston and everything works, and it's RNG.
Yeah,
it's absolutely right. The guy said, listen, it'd be harder to rig it than it is just to let it do its own thing. So like I trust the casinos. Like I do. There's no incentive for them to really cheat. But I understand that there's this perception sometimes that if they're trying to get an extra buck, maybe they manage it somehow differently. And the other thing is literally you don't know. There's no label that says works on RNG as opposed to it being on a slot curve. So if you know anything about slot machines, David's here. Look away or cover your ears because you're not going to want to hear this. But basically, the slot curve is they put the chip in there and the machine knows what it's going to pay, when it's going to pay, all the way from now until that machine retires. It has nothing to do with when you press the button. It has nothing to do with your birthday. You know what I mean? It's just none of those things, play out. So you don't want, obviously, to play blackjack on a slot curve because then it doesn't make any sense. You want to be able to make decisions like on a craps game. But those dice are truly RNG, is my understanding. Yeah.
So let's take a look at the bigger picture. What does this say about the future of Las Vegas? Are we moving towards more machines, fewer people, or will live tables still be a place here?
No, I think ETG technology will evolve. I think there'll be better ETG. I think that ETGs, hopefully there's a point where they start taking more input from table game directors as opposed to kind of the bean counter or the experience. People focus more on the experience. So I do feel like there is this mix of ETGs that will make sense and will be optimized for use. They'll figure it out. And that's why I'm holding out a little bit to see what goes on at the Golden Gate. Right, so I've heard one rumor about it just being no dealers, and then I heard another rumor about being hybrid games. So who knows? We'll see how that plays out. But I think Derek, he's got the money and he's got the control to kind of make something special happen there. I mean, we'll see. Maybe it's just all the ETGs that we know now just going to be pushed into that. But table games are growing. Gen Zs, very specifically, young people today are looking for a live experience, and that's what craps is. That's what blackjack is, all these kinds of experience, and it's a fact. If you go and you look at all the statistics with big polls that have been done of young people today, you will find that they're looking for experience. The takeaway is they need an experience that they can afford, right? That's the takeaway, and that's the part of Vegas that has to be kind of auto-corrected here soon. But craps games are doing fantastic. There's growth in craps. Last year, craps revenue, top line of craps revenue exceeded roulette. I mean, that's fantastic. Where if 20 years ago, if you'd asked any boss here in town where craps was going to come out this other end, they would have told you it was dying. right? The people that were really playing, and I knew that. Even dealing when I was a young person, 40 years or 30-something years ago, craps players skewed older. Not anymore. There are a lot of older players, people my age, people older than me that have been playing, that have continued to play, but there's a lot of younger people. Casino Quest are the people that are coming into Casino Quest more and more are younger groups of people. I just had a group of 4 people who rented me, by the way, and I'm not cheap, and they came in specifically to see me, get this whole other experience. And you know what's crazy? They weren't even planning to play because affordability, right? They didn't want to buy in at $25, but I pointed them to a $5 game, and they set off for that. So luckily here at Vegas, there's a few $5 and $10 games, and so they didn't think they could play based on where they were staying. But guess what? Now they had, because they only wanted to play $100, $200. They spent more on me than what their buying was going to be.
Yeah.
But we're seeing that more and more. Yesterday there was a very young couple that came in, that wanted to create some opportunity. You know what I mean? And people want the experience to play live. The digital game is not going to erode the table games here in Vegas. Table games will continue to grow. The thing that's eroding everything else that's going on in Vegas is literally nothing to do with ETGs right now. It's these other stories we're going to get to in a minute.
Yeah, and to throw in my own 2 cents on the Gen Z part of it too, is like I'm literally a testament to that. Like, I go hunt my $5 game. I go play, and I enjoy that visceral experience of being there.
Yeah.
It's not something I would give up, but to each their own, right? Everyone.
So I do want to add that there's this rush to a rush to judgment, rush to sort of push out all this negative stuff. So I'm doing this interview the other day, right? And the person that was interviewing me was interviewing me with questions, and at the end of it, when we were done, basically asked me, listen, when you're talking about table games, that means a dealer, right? And I was like, well, so I feel like there's way too much, in this business that just gets parroted, and people accept that at face value instead of adding the context of who is working. I mean, has anybody actually talked to a dealer? They're talking about tokes and stuff like this. I mean, you got to go talk to a dealer. Ask them how their tips are doing. You follow, get some real context. Don't just one person over here said something and now, oh my God, we're going to dramatize it and make it into this big story.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I feel like no one's asking any more questions.
Yeah. Or no one's asking the right questions.
And especially on stuff like any news cycle where it has to come out like this.
Yeah.
It's basically let's just say everything's going to shit, everything's fine.
Yeah. We okay, good. Yeah. Anything else? What do you got?
There's some numbers that I guess you want to share here.
Yeah.
Yes, no, maybe.
Yeah. Okay, so
I'm waiting for you.
So the crazy numbers is now we're going to get into the next part. Is Vegas dying? So there's a hellacious numbers. You want to share that? So let's go over some numbers right now, because you could say that Vegas is dying, and there are content creators that are really leaning into lots of negativity. And we have pictures. We're not going to show them, but we've taken pictures of literally dead casinos. If you want to come to Vegas right now, there's a lot of room, not a lot of crowds. Rooms are cheap. But here, let's go over. So let's talk about visitation to Vegas is down 11% so far this year. That's terrible. There's occupancy rates here in Vegas as low as 60% midweek at some hotels. And let me say, they are talking about it. And it's clear that there's a lot going on. Hotel occupancy is off as much as 15% overall in the Valley, which is terrible. Room revenue is down as much as 35%. So of the rooms that we're renting, we got to rent them for less, right? So room revenue is down 35%. There's another report that came out that talked about tipping being down as much as 50%. And of course, people at table game arena are like, oh my God, dealers aren't making any more money. Not true, okay? So they're talking about tipping being down as much as 50%. And then some carriers are saying so that the traffic is off by 64%. International traffic is off by 64%. And some planes or some carriers have stopped some direct international flights that you've heard about. And we're going to unpack some of this stuff. And it's amazing, a lot of argument. First, I want to deal with the truth. We'll go ahead. So let's. I'm going to counter some of this stuff with some other statistics, and then we'll go into some truth. Okay. So gaming revenue in the state is actually up 3.5%, despite 400,000 less visitors. 400,000 less visitors, revenue is up. Spending per person spending is also up. And of course, that has a little negative attachment to it because you're spending $95 for baked potato. You know what I'm saying? So you got to spend more. You don't have a choice. Convention and group traffic is actually growing. So convention traffic, not by a lot, by a little bit, but it's still, businesses are still booking convention space. I have a friend of mine that works at the convention center, and let me tell you, they are staying very busy. Local casinos, their revenue is up as much as 10% or more in some cases. And so casinos on Boulder are doing great. Casinos locally are doing great. Station Casinos just reported on their last quarter, had a fantastic quarter. So our local economy is doing pretty good. So if you're working at those local casinos, you haven't seen a lot of this negativity or a lot of these impacts. People are still coming good.
And some people have mentioned, I saw earlier someone mentioned that they came here like last week and the Palms is busy.
Yeah.
Someone said South Point's always busy, which South Point's always busy.
Yeah. And they're busy for a reason, right? Those are the value destinations now. Palms has $5 and $10 games. Our friend Nerm just went there. He's now the vice president, by the way, and he's already enacted all these different changes. By the way, they have this very famous Michelin-starred bun guy.
Pork buns?
Pork bun dude. The guy that got that had that street, that food vendor guy. I don't know if you guys heard the news about him being awarded a Michelin star. Well, guess what? He's over at the Palms, and it's fantastic. So they are really making that place its own destination. And locals, are going there because, it's got some value. It's got a great buffet. It's got this fantastic restaurant. And $5 and $10 games are pulling you in. Those are the loss leaders now, the actual table games in some way. You follow? It's hard to make money on a $5 or $10 game. But we'll okay. And then the last part of it is the strip itself has stabilized itself. So despite the fact that there's less people coming, occupancy is down, people are interacting with the casino differently. Listen, there's some very, very smart people who stay ahead of this curve as much as possible. And that's where we're going to kind of get into next. But the strip has mostly stabilized itself. There are a few casinos that are really getting extra whacked. They're S-tier whacked right now, but for their own reasons. You see? Go ahead.
Well, let's talk about the tourism because, we've heard a lot of news about it.
Yeah.
So with all the news about it, from the crime stories to softer tourism numbers, what context can you add? What bigger picture is there here?
Okay, so tourism to Vegas is definitely getting hurt, and I will say that there is sort of a political dynamic to that. So I'm not going to go into the politics of it, but let's just say if you're Canadian, if you're Mexican, if you're, some of these immigrant things and some of these trade issues are definitely playing a role in people not wanting to just be tourists in general, right? Not wanting to come to the United States. And that is, without a doubt, impacting international tourism for sure. And Vegas, unfortunately, has some dependency on international tourism. In fact, before this happened, before all this sort of tariff talks and different things that were happening, between us and Canada, I was not aware that Canada is responsible for 30% of the traffic to Vegas. And you know what Canadians do when they come here? They spend a shit ton of money. They save up. This is literally a destination for them. They're one of the biggest markets for timeshares and all these others. So them not coming is a really big deal. There was a gift shop recently who talked about they're close to the Las Vegas Strip, and they talked about how the impact of less Canadians has really the traffic inside the store is down just a little bit, but the fact that Canadians aren't there and Canadians really spend, right? If you're coming from LA, for example, and you're just driving here and I wouldn't say you're a local, but you're pretty local and you're a regular visitor to Vegas, you beeline it, man. You know where you're going, you know where you're staying, you know what you're playing, right? You're not stopping to buy the t-shirt or the souvenir. You already have a bucket of those at your house, you see? But when you're an international tourist, guess what you're doing? You're buying all the extra stuff. You're doing all the bougie stuff. You're doing all these things that some of the regulars to Vegas are over with, right? If you're a regular gamble to Vegas, you're probably hitting up food courts or finding ways to eat local. You rent a car, for example. You interact with Vegas in a very different way. So not having these international tourists is definitely taking its toll. I also didn't realize that Mexicans are 10% of our high limit traffic. So if you're coming from Mexico, and by the way, you're very often a high limit player here in Las Vegas, and so that market has been quashed to a bit. But here's the big picture when it comes to tourism here in Vegas. First of all, in a minute, we're all going to kumbaya this, and people will start coming back. I'm very confident that that's a thing. There's always the hopium parts of it. The stock market is still going up despite nothing. I mean, there is some good news from some areas, but let's be honest. The fact that the stock market is still going crazy, it just seems like a lot of hopium. A lot of people are hoping that we're all going to make it through, and I think that's the end game. The other thing about Vegas is that there's lots of investment going on here. There are a lot of really smart people making really big investments. You have Hard Rock building, this big-ass guitar hotel that's going to be opening. You have the new stadium going up that Bally's is building where the Tropicana stood. So there's all this investment. There's all these shows. Nothing has stopped. Nothing has slowed down. There's all the cranes. Everything is still going on. And here's the biggest point I will make when it comes to people sort of trying to lean into the negativity. When COVID hit, and everybody, the strip closed down for the first time in history. In fact, there were some hotels that didn't know how to close their doors. They had never been closed. They had to install separate locks and doors just to close the doors. No one had ever closed the doors before. So they closed the doors. Everybody goes home. Strip is dead. People are taking pictures. And listen, everybody was leaning in it. No one's coming back to Vegas. No one's going to have any money. This is going to put casinos out of business, and then it's going to take forever for them to come back. And basically everybody was just negative Nancy. Sorry if your name is Nancy, right? David was so depressed. I blew up to 210 pounds. I added, I'm 50 pounds less now. That's how, I believed it. I bought into it. I was like, oh my God, our school's out of business. School's out of business, Casino Quest everything's out of business. What the hell am I gonna do? Just sitting back collecting stimulus checks, Didn't even know that was a thing until 3 months in, right? Now, you know what happened? Circa, Derek Stevens, his casino gives us a call and says, you know what, we're opening a casino. We need to train all these, dancing dealers. And so we were able to open up a quarter of our school, train all the circuit dealers. You follow, like everybody came in, he believed, and you know what, I believed with him. The Wall Street Journal came out and interviewed me and Derek. And we ended up in the same article. We weren't together sitting, together or anything, but they interviewed Derek, they interviewed me, and I famously, for me and my mother, because my mother, said, listen, Vegas figures it out. So I'm hired, I'm training all these girls. We have Circa opening in the middle of COVID or towards the end of COVID, really, right? Making this massive investment, lots of opium playing a role in their casino opening. And you know what? Vegas did work it out. Not only did they work it out, but Vegas recovered so much faster than any of the analysts or anyone believed was possible. It became a banner year. There was money flowing everywhere. Casinos were rolling in it. There was success story after success story after success story. You know why? Because it's really good people. It's really good leaders here. There is some really good, really smart people who are all about sort of, creating this experience and finding a way forward. Even when sometimes, it takes us a minute, right? We go into these little bit of corrections. It takes us a minute to figure out. But in the end, Vegas always evolves and moves forward, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's true. If you've been here long enough, David's been here longer than I have, but yeah. I was born and raised here. I've seen it go through its ups and downs and survive through some pretty tough times.
Yeah.
Let me kind of see what we have over here. Oh, someone was asking if can they film the clinic for YouTube?
Well, we're 100% filming the clinic for YouTube.
No,
Our
if
clinic?
they can film it.
Oh, when you come? Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, we're going to be selling the clinic, dude. So that would be like, they would just go to you and, when they take the clinic?
Yeah.
You can film like parts of it, like, you know what I mean? Like you being part of the clinic, but yeah. We license all that stuff. We have a beginner's clinic and advanced clinic at CQ.
No, I think they're talking about you and the one with you and Ronnie.
Oh, our clinic. Oh, the R&D clinic. Oh, hell no. What are you talking about? No, that's just kidding. That's like secret stuff, dude. That's trade secret stuff. Are you kidding me?
The trade secret stuff?
We have little snippets. We're actually going to film you. That's what we want. We're going to film you and get permission. So we are, you can film parts of it, like you're part of it and you're shooting and stuff. We have no problem with that. The only thing is I ask is like when I do my, the gambling clinic part of it, that that's kind of because we want people to come back, right? If you're giving it away, people aren't going to pay for us to. By the way, we only have one spot left in the R&D clinic. It's the day before our birthday bash, which birthday bash is fantastic. We're gonna have a full floor. We have a fantastic big ass cake coming. I don't want to give it away. I won't tell you, but we're giving away a shit ton of prizes, and it's going to be the best birthday bash we've ever had. Things are great for us. We're doing fantastic. We love that there's this correction right now because I think it's pushing a lot of people over to Casino Quest, which we don't mind whatsoever. And so we are going to literally just pile it on and make this the best birthday bash ever. That's the goal.
Yeah, no, 100%. We're going back to form a little bit and going through all the different things, itineraries, little challenges and stuff.
Yeah, so we're going to plan this out. It's going to be very interactive. It's going to be an event filled with a lot of activities. We have a lot of people coming. I in a minute, if you have any questions, I want to get to a few of the solves. So we do have, I have a video coming out where I think it's coming out maybe tomorrow.
Maybe tomorrow.
Uh-oh, it was supposed to come out today now. We're doing this today, so maybe tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, just working on it. It was a little longer than I expected, so it took a little longer to cut down.
So basically, I have the cure for. We recently did a video so I talked about
the major issues.
The issues that casinos are having, and the reason why people aren't necessarily the gamblers being squeezed, right? And it's doing really well, by the way. It's fantastic. So that is leading into this whole series. So what's the fix? So I went ahead and literally got, again, all my friends together, and we started working through, what's the real opportunity, right? So how do you bring people back? How do you create a very conducive environment and recovery? I believe right now we're going through an autocorrect, and I do think that it's great timing in the bigger scheme, in the big picture, right? So by that I mean this: we're taking a hit. There are less people coming, and Vegas now has to do something to attract the people that are coming, or more people that are local. International tourism, that's not going to be fixed right away. There's a few things that are going to take a minute before it's going to work its way through. So what we have there is lots of gamblers who haven't been coming back to Vegas or have delayed trips because of the value equation, right? You have a lot of young people that are coming because of the experience equation. So how do you kind of lean into those things and fix those things? Well, already Vegas is in autocorrect mode. So if you haven't already heard, there's a few casinos now that have got, free parking is back. Hello. You know what I mean? I can't even believe we got rid of free parking. That's one of the things that I loved about Vegas is free park. You could park wherever the hell you wanted to park. Who cared? Who cared what casino you park at? The Luxor, you walk across the street, takes cab. You know what I mean? It didn't make any difference. When you go to other cities now, holy crap, when you rent a hotel and you're going cross country like we did, you got to pay attention. Because it's like $50, $100 for the room, and then $50 to park. You know what I mean? That's half the cost. Literally, we went to a hotel. It was $100 for the room, $50 to park. And by me doing a package deal, it was free valet. I would have had to pay if it was. But anyways, so when you come to Vegas, you know what? Free parking. The other one is they're offering free resort fees, right? And a lot of free rooms just to move gamblers. So if you're a gambler, make sure to check all your coupons because guess what? They're sending out all sorts of incentives to come. Room credits, free rooms, food credits, all these things are starting to be rolling out. Now, here's where I think this is going to help long term. I feel like casinos are going to go back into this mode of identifying the gambler parts of it, that premium player, that table game player that we're talking about, and kind of start separating a look at the tourist a little bit different from the gambler, and maybe try to keep that gambler coming because guess what? Let's get ahead of anything that might happen in the future. Let's keep these people coming back. The other thing I feel like sometimes is missed is Vegas is hospitality central, right? Without disparaging some other cities like maybe Paris, you know what I mean? You go to Paris, dude, and you hear constantly about how, lots of people, let's just say, not everybody, but let's just say I go to Paris and I want to share some French and I'm frowned on or treated badly, in between whatever rioting is going on in that town at any given time. You know what Vegas is? And if you're French and you live in France right now or Paris, I'm sorry, but man, you guys riot like just literally on a dime. There's no rioting going on in Vegas. It's a really safe city, despite what anyone else will tell you. It's especially the Strip, dude. The Strip is very safe. You can come here, be careful, comfortable, and guess what? We love everybody. There's none of those rumors about if someone mistreats you, it's because they're the asshole or maybe you were kind of weird. I don't know. But we don't just don't like French people. If you're a French person, you come to Vegas, you speak all the English you want. Won't make fun of you. You know what I mean? Like literally, we're a hospitality center. In fact, UNLV, our university here, you can get a doctorate in hospitality. That's how hospitality centric we are. And Vegas is known for this. Like we are literally, Beau Bernard has made us the destination of hospitality people, right? He's the VP of UNLV, our university here. And it's become a center point. People come from all over the world learning how to be nice and interact with hotel guests and things like this. We are that. Vegas attracts everyone. We love everybody. There's no issues here. It's a very safe place to be and have this experience. And you can do literally anything in Las Vegas.
So someone asked, interesting question.
Yeah.
Why do you think Vegas is dropping off yet Atlantic City is growing? I mean, my short answer is there's a bit of context there.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know about how well. So Atlantic City is definitely getting ahead of its own curve. Took them a long time, by the way. So, I think that the thing that Atlantic City missed that Vegas really got a hold of was, sort of evolution, right? Evolving into all these other categories, making Vegas a destination. Atlantic City should have made an investment in, and there's no one that'll disagree with this, in that local area, dude. You shouldn't be flying over that and seeing what's there and then trying to go on the wharf or on the boardwalk and being worried about being, I won't use the word, but being, harassed or something. It just doesn't build. But they have cleaned that up. They have much better destination properties now. And the properties in and of themselves, I think, have become sort of these better managed entities that have evolved over time. So I think it's sort of, they're finally sort of working through a lot of what has been their own cogs over the years. I will say that. I'm a fan. The first place I ever gambled was Atlantic City. I was 17 years old in Philadelphia. Got on one of those little buses. They gave me 2 rolls of quarters and a coupon for lunch. And there I was. Took a bus, played famously at Bally's. Not famously, but at Bally's, played blackjack, won a little money, and got the hell out of there. Yeah.
Yeah, so Vegas Day Trippers actually is like Vegas needs to show some appreciation to every man, loosen the comp so there's extra incentive for the average person to come and stay at Vegas.
By the way, so I don't want to touch on too many of those things, but literally this video that we have coming out either today or tomorrow, I literally break down all that stuff. Day Tripper, I absolutely agree. Let's just be honest, like Vegas has squeezed out the gambler. The gambler has become sort of a less qualified entity. The comping system is terrible. Most of the focus on losses as opposed to how you play, I think, is a detriment. And by that I mean, so Vegas has gotten to this point where some casinos and some playing systems, you get if let's say you play $1,000 a day, right? In years past, just based on you being $1,000 player, you would get sort of this tiered, comping status. You maybe had a host or something like this, and you just got, Nowadays, you really got to be a loser to get more. If you win, you get less, right? Because it's just how they kind of incentivize the player, which I think sucks. I want my coupons to be regardless of whether I win or lose. Listen, I risked $1,000. You should love me and want me to come back, right? Those kinds of things. The premium on food is taken away from the opportunity to get food comps. The premium on rooms is taken away the opportunity. So all these things have to change. The one thing that I also address is sort of the social media parts of it. How people like to engage. I wore my Metas. I don't have them on now, but I had my Metas, which are prescription glasses, right? For me, and I use them, to do point of view stuff, right, for our channel. And a casino kicked me out, dude, and didn't let me, if I hadn't had a different pair of glasses in the car, I couldn't have played. And I was playing high limit Keno. You would think they want me for that, dude. Are you kidding me? That's like free money for the casino, but no. So these kinds of things have to change. It's silly. You shouldn't care at this point. There's so much social media, and young people, they want to capture what they're doing in their daily lives. They want to share it with their friends and family, whatever the case is. It's become so much part of our life. So casinos are really going to have to evolve this understanding of how people interact with the casino floor. And I think once they do, then you're going to have, it'll start getting really exciting. And I like where we're at now. Literally, I believe that everything has a reason. And I believe that the very fact that we're going through this is literally putting eyes on this topic, is making people sort of fixate. How do we get the gambler? Gamblers are a reliable entity. Used to be in Vegas, you always had gamblers. not so much a thing, right? So, we need these gamblers to come back. We need them to be regulars. We need to enjoy the casino space. And so how do we incentivize the gambler? You know what? We go back to giving them great rooms, great food, great access, someone that says, hello, hey, someone to meet you, someone to greet you, someone to make that experience feel special. So many casinos got rid of all their executive hosts. There's no hosts. You go in, you can't even find a host. It's just a players department. And there maybe a VIP there, can answer some questions and help you with your tier status. That's not a host. I used to go there years ago, go to the Mirage, not even playing any money, just next to somebody playing money, and someone would come up and say hello to me. You see, I felt special. I felt good about that,
Not leaving Las Vegas. Says casino companies want all digital floors, and it's coming. I think you came here a little late.
Yeah.
We know casino bosses, and that's just not a thing.
Yeah, I know. Is this he has a channel? He came out with one of these. So that's not a thing. The ETGs are not going to replace live table games. It's its own market. It's a very separate, distinct thing. So the idea that it's the cost-saving measure, there's no comparison between the ETG and the live table games. There's not a single, table game director, VP casino that would make that decision with that premium player. They're not going to push out that premium player. ETGs just don't play to that dynamic. In our community of table game players or people that actually play, buy in for $1,000, none of those people are going to downsize. They will literally just move to the casino that has live table games. They might stay at a property where they've been incentivized, but they will play at a property that has the live table games.
And not only that, but to mention that we've been, cross country, and we've seen casinos that are just slot parlors, basically. Yeah. And there's no energy there. It's just very kind of droll. We would never go back, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, as table game players, it changes the entire atmosphere. So I know that people that either aren't dealers or aren't in the environment don't understand how this gaming floor works and the difference between that retail consumer and that premium player. It's easy to say, listen, ETGs are cheaper, they're more efficient. It's just not a thing. If you're a craps player, if you're a blackjack player, if you're a table game player, and you buy in for more than, let's say, $500 or more, and you fit into that premium category, ETG is just not part of the thing. It may be something to do on the way to the buffet, or while you're waiting for someone who has, gone to the bathroom.
I think we're going to agree to disagree on not leaving Las Vegas. He was mentioning that younger people want a one-to-one experience because they're trained on their phones and devices. But if you look at all the studies where they've done the Pew reports and everything that they have done, it shows that Gen Z wants to go outside. They want to interact. They want to have a visual experience. I think they're tired of the same old one. And this is coming from someone who is Gen Z, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't like being on my phone. I don't want to be on my TV. I don't want these things. So,
by the way, we explored that very same issue. So I've heard this from a few people that talk about, Gen Zs are used to being on their phones, right? Used to playing video games. They play all these, these games are very, like you said, have this one-on-one thing. That's true in their sort of normal everyday environment. But when they go on vacation, they want to see the Grand Canyon, right? They want to have this sort of other, experience that's off their phone, right? The phone is their daily habit, and then but when they buy into the experience, they want something different. And we literally, if you go online and you just search for all this polling, and the body of polling supports this, that even dating sites are taking a hit. The most popular dating sites now are dating sites that are experiential. They're not dating sites like Match.com. I mean, there's still a lot of people on Match.com, but where it's this sort of the digital introduction. The biggest dating site, the thing that's catching a lot is like you go and join a biking club. That's how you date. You go out and you do stuff. You go bike, you go kayak, you go camping,
and do some hobbies.
You group up with other singles that are going and doing something. And Gen Zers are eating this up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I'm always of the opinion that people love people, right?
Yeah.
Like, we like to interact. As much as sometimes we could be a little antisocial as a generation, doesn't come from anything but, we were forced to be that way for a very long time, but that's not what we want.
Yeah, I know it's easy to kind of feed into this other. I mean, again, this is one of those things where I'm sure will just be, I've been reading and watching all these YouTube that that you'd be crazy to come here and Vegas is dying and none of these things are happening. None of those things are. This is a fantastic town with some really fantastic people. Now, do we have a terrible education system? 100%.
That is true.
Is our cost of housing out of the way? 100%. Are there neighborhoods like every other city that really just suck? Do we have a lot of people here that literally aren't looking for unemployment's high? But there's a lot of people that come to Vegas just in a bit younger category that aren't looking for jobs. They're not part of that active job. So there's all this other context that's always missing from these articles. And it's if you see a video go out on YouTube that gets millions of views just leaning into all the negative shit, guess what? You followed up your own negative views. We put Vegas is dying on our thing in the hopes that we would get views. It's just the way it works. It's how the algorithm works. It's just how you push it out. But I am a very optimistic person. I started in this town at a time when you would think all this was true. Vegas is dying. The gamblers are going away. There's not going to be any crap players. And you know what? We figured it out. Vegas figured it out.
I'll read this. Not Leaving Las Vegas says, ton of respect for y'all. For sure, miss your presence on the strip. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, CQ is now a different place, but it makes my life easier.
Yeah. We're happy to be local. Where we're at right now is a much more cohesive thing. And by the way, thank you everybody for coming to us. Yeah. Yeah.
I think that this is a good place to end it.
Good. All right, guys, thank you so much. Do not forget, we have CQ Nexus. Our app is coming. We look forward to having some more discussions with you in the future. And don't forget, we're still a dealer school, and we train dealers.
And we train players as well.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Off to Keno.
Fading to black.
Bye.